How is range affected on cargo e-bikes? Wait a second, there I go. When you add a second rider. Hey buddy, how you doing? To find out, I'm gonna use this one from Letrigo, which has a cool turn signal light right here. And this is called the Minivan SE. Now that's just one of the 5 most asked questions about cargo e-bikes. And so I figured I'd make a review based on those 5 questions. So here we go. Before I begin, let me just show you what we have to work with here as far as battery. Let me just wipe that off there. This is a 48 volt, 14 amp hour battery. Got a charge port cover right there. Off, on. And then on the other side, there's a key slot. They give you 2 keys, so you can take it out and charge it inside if you want to. That is a UL certified battery. It takes 5 hours to recharge, and they say when it's fully recharged and with a single rider, you can get 40 miles. And for this test, I am gonna put it on turbo mode, and I'm only gonna use the throttle. I ain't gonna touch the pedals. I don't even wanna go there. And I'm gonna do this 4-mile loop, starting from my house, coming back to my house, and measure how much the battery drops from here to here again. Okay, I'm back, and I wrote the stats down. And my app said I got 4.11 miles with 243 feet of elevation gain. And after waiting about 5 minutes, the battery life said 89%. And I did go full throttle the entire way. Plug it back in, there we go. And wait till it hits 100% again, and then do that again with another rider. Just unplugged it, and let me just verify it is 100%. 100%. So now I need my wife. Wife! Who is very eager to go ride in the cold.
Absolutely.
It's a balmy 45 degrees outside.
It's crazy cold.
Wow. We made it back home. Did you have the time of your life?
I absolutely did. It's like Disneyland. Thank you for that.
All right, so that test with me and my wife, my app said we got 4.21 miles, which is a little bit strange because I literally went in the exact same spot as before, but we're just gonna forget about that. This time I got 240 feet of elevation, which is 3 less than the first time. Looks like this app needs to be better at doing its appiness. So what is the battery level this time? That would be 81%, which is an 8% difference from a single rider. So by myself, going just over 4 miles, I drained the battery down to 89%. With me and my wife, it dropped to an additional 8%. If you're one of those math geniuses out there, you can do some extrapolation and figure out what you would get then if you drain the battery all the way. But anyways, the point being is that you do lose some range when you have a second rider. So that wraps up question number 1. Question number 2 is, wait for it. Oh, that's easy. How much can it carry? To answer that question, I have to have a little help from my friends because it can carry 1 of me, 2 of me, and a half of me, or about 450 pounds. It's got a rider size rating of 5'2" up to 6'3", and you can adjust the handlebars. You can either push them forward or you can bring them back, and that's going to increase or decrease the cockpit. Oh, and if you are somebody small and you want to move this around or put it in the back of your truck, it's not that bad for a cargo bike. It only weighs 71 pounds. Question number 3 is how well does it ride with the load? So if you got a second passenger on the back, is it gonna be stable or not so stable? And from that range test that I did just a couple minutes ago, having a second rider in the back, it does affect the handling. If they're doing this sort of thing, it's not a super jerky motion, but when she was leaning, you can feel in the handlebars. You gotta put some more effort to turn the other way. Now, when she wasn't doing that and she just behaved herself and sat square on the rack, it was fine. The 4th question is it safe for children? That's a great question. In this condition, I would say no, because there's no cage or padding or anything back here for the second rider. But if you buy their accessory cage that comes with pads and has a railing that comes up about as high as the saddle, then yes, I would say it's very safe. Now, they actually offer a lot more accessories. You got bags, racks, front racks, rear racks, every type of accessory that you would expect with a cargo bike. These guys have. I need my notes again because for this question, people ask, how well does this cargo bike stack up against other cargo bikes? So I dug down into my YouTube library to find out other cargo bikes that I've reviewed, and that's the HJM, the Norau, the Letric, and Velotric. There's 1 company that's cheaper, and then 3 companies that are more expensive. This costs $1,579. Some of these bikes are costing $2,000. And then as far as ride and feel and all of that stuff, when you compare it to those other bikes, really hard to tell a difference. There's a couple of the other brands that have better hill climbing, a little bit faster off the line when you have a second rider. But as far as like just your basic hauling your kids from A to B, This pretty much feels just like the rest of them. Well, that is the 5 questions. Hopefully you got enlightened, entertained, and you feel good emotionally about what I've said. It's time to talk about some other stuff. And the first thing I want to talk about is the hill climbing ability. So the other day I took this up to the hill test that I take all bikes up to. It is a 16% grade, a half a block long, and the bike made it up pretty good with just me. At the very top of that hill, I was hitting 9 miles per hour. Now when I took my wife and we did the range test, I went up that same hill, and when I did, it didn't go so well. I was just gonna use the throttle like I did when it was just me, and it didn't have quite enough power. I had to pedal and put it into the first gear in order to make it up that hill. Now that's with 2 adults. I have my girls on there. I think I could have made it up with just the throttle. But 2 adults going up a 15% grade, just a little too much for this little guy. I want to interject for just 1 second because I failed to mention that this is a torque sensor bike, which means that the more pressure you put in the pedals, the more power the motor gives. So when it comes to climbing hills, you'll have more power pedaling than using the throttle. As far as brakes, you have hydraulic brakes. This is mineral oil. The size, the fill, and the stopping power these brakes give you remind me of brakes in the $2,000 range. Right side controls the rear, left side the front. It's got a 180mm rotor, and when you hit the brake levers, the tail light flares up. I want to talk about the last few things I haven't talked about yet, and that is the lock-on grips. Those aren't moving. They're slightly wing-tipped and feel pretty nice. You got a control pad, plus, minus, and then left and right turn signals, and when you hit the turn signals, check that out. It's pretty awesome. And then it also shows up in the rear, or in the tail light. There's also an arrow on the screen, and you do have to hit them again to turn them off. And when you do, then it just goes to this just ambient lighting. On the right side, you have a trigger-style 8-speed Shimano shifter. Pushing down, you go about 2-3 gears. Coming up is 1 at a time. That's rapid fire, nice and clean. Saddle's pretty large and quite cushy. I like it. The display's pretty small, but it does look nice, and it's a color LCD. And in the advanced settings, you can change this to an auto mode, which means that it will automatically adjust depending on the lighting that's around you. If you hold the plus button down, that turns on the headlights. In the advanced settings, you can also turn the headlight to an auto mode. In the front, you got a front fork suspension. You can lock that out and adjust it. And you got some pretty good travel on that. That's 120mm of travel. There's aluminum fenders. And then you got these 24 by 2.60 gravel tires. There are features of this bike that are waterproof, others that are water resistant. The display is waterproof. And the last thing to tell you is that this does come in 2 colors. So there you go, guys. That's the 5 most asked questions about cargo e-bikes. Hopefully that was helpful.